What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Remote Front Office. Before we get into today's video, if you could please make sure to like, subscribe, share. Again, all content is Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. And make sure that your notification bell is on, please. I've heard people aren't getting notifications because the notification bell isn't on. But today, there is no script for today's video. Sometimes I try and at least pre-plan things out to a given extent. So I at least make sure to stay on topic because I tend to ramble. But today, there's only one thing on today's docket, and this is the Chicago Bulls. Okay? The reason for this video today is while I was at work, notification came out from Shams. The Chicago Bulls were closing in on a 3-for-60 deal with Nikola Vucevic. And then a little while later, it pretty much is all but confirmed, even though free agency doesn't start officially until this weekend. I've talked with fellow Bulls fans a couple of times here. If you guys are that person, shout out to you. But here's the deal, right? Before the Vucevic trade a couple of years ago, I didn't like the trade. Made that publicly known. I was not a fan. Felt like we were trying to rush a timeline that we just weren't ready to rush. We also gave up 2 firsts for a guy that was a little bit older, and I've just always preferred my centers to be defensive oriented. Vucevic is no such thing. My initial thought going into this offseason was, well, maybe best case scenario, our front office / ownership. It's hard to put the blame in one particular spot because we went through the same thing with the last front office group to an extent. Not obviously as bad as the last front office group. I want to make that known. This front office group has done many things that the previous regime didn't understand. One of those being what a sign and trade is. Garpax did not understand that sort of thing. Kardashev has shown us that he is capable of that. I think he is capable of building a good team when given a proper timeline. The issue is ownership refuses to let this team take a proper couple of years to tank, regroup, regain assets, and truly give us a proper rebuild, right? We went through it with the end of the Derrick Rose era. We had Jimmy Butler still, so we kind of just traded Derrick Rose to move on. And then eventually Jimmy Butler wasn't happy, and this front office specifically said, at the time, that front office said that they did not know how to build around Jimmy Butler a winning team, right? So we traded him for Zach LaVine, Chris Dunn, Larry Marketing, right? Not a great haul, obviously. This was before the 17 first-round picks that current superstars go for, right? And then, obviously, Chris Dunn didn't work out. Larry Marketing didn't fit in the current system we had. So he went to Cleveland where he was decent, and then he went to Utah where he was an all-star. Zach LaVine has shown spurts. I've never loved Zach LaVine as a defender. I've never loved Zach LaVine as a primary facilitator. I've always felt like he needs a true point guard next to him. I do like his shot making when he's asked to be in his proper role as more of a catch secondary creator. But he's also going into his 9th season and has 4 playoff games. Didn't love the Vooch trade, as I said. And then to push that even further, we signed and trade for DeMar, who the contract turned out worth it for DeMar. I will admit, DeMar's contract turned out worth it. We also did a sign and trade to get Lonzo. Lonzo's his health, so I don't know if I can necessarily put that as far as the rebuild goes. He would have fit the timeline, given his age and everything like that, if we did want to rebuild, right? He would have fit into that timeline, wouldn't have been an issue. But what this tells me, and what I've heard from various podcasts, whether it be Bill Simmons, whether it be the guys from Locked On Chicago, various places, Zach Lowe, is this team thinks they can compete in the East, right? They essentially think we are a point guard short of being able to compete. They look at what Patrick Beverley did in minutes, think, obviously, you upgrade from Patrick Beverley, and magically this team can compete. I have news for you. This team cannot compete. We didn't have Lonzo when we played Milwaukee in those 4 playoff games that Zach had. And Zach wasn't 100%. But Milwaukee showed us this team is not a playoff contender, right? With Vooch at center and having DeMar and Zach LaVine as your big 3, your 3 all-stars, as we continually call it on the broadcast, this team cannot succeed. You're not getting out of the first round. You couldn't even get out of the play-in last year. You cannot succeed. The problem is all ownership sees is a team that, because of the loyal fan base, will continue to have great ticket sales year after year after year after year. And if you take those great ticket sales and you make sure that you have a team every year that at least makes the play-in, you get 1, if not 2, possible extra games of tickets, right? And then if you make the playoffs, you get 3, possibly 4 extra games of tickets, right? And that extra revenue adds up into your pocket. I've always tried to be extremely, when I started this channel, my goal was to be as unbiased when it came to things as possible. With the Bulls, it's so hard to do, and at this point, I don't know if I can do it. This team is so far away from playoff contention. I don't understand how, unless ownership specifically told you, re-sign Vucevic, we're running it back. Because reports have all but confirmed Lonzo's out the year, right? So we only get half of his salary back in a designated injury exception, or whatever the proper term is, right? We get half of his salary back to fill his spot. This team will not go over the luxury tax. We've proven that time and time again. We do not have a point guard currently. We have to re-sign Ayo. We have to re-sign Kobe. Patrick Williams is due for an extension in the next year. I don't know what Patrick Williams is. I like the potential. I see the flashes. I don't know what he is, though. I just don't, right? We don't. Andre Drummond may leave. If he leaves, who knows who our backup center is? It's probably Tony fucking Bradley. And if you're a Bulls fan, you've seen Tony Bradley play and you know what Tony Bradley is, right? Marcos Simonovic, who was a second rounder who got the extra year instead of Ayo, doesn't even touch the court because Billy Donovan forgot what his name is, apparently, because he doesn't ever play him. And then, right, on draft day, have no picks, no expectations. Derrick Jones Jr. announces, the day before, declining the player option, going to enter free agency. Cool. We trade into the draft to take a Derrick Jones Jr. replacement, not to get a guy that's ready to help us win now, ready to help this team build, get a guy that's been in college a couple of years that can come in and contribute right away. No. We go get a guy that fits the description of Derrick Jones Jr. to a goddamn team. How is that your priority? You're okay, so we're in the second round. We're obviously probably not going to get a starting caliber player here. Let's get a guy that's a vet that's ready to contribute, right? No. Let's go find the guy that looks exactly like Derrick Jones Jr. play-wise and draft him. So we don't have to pay Derrick Jones Jr. It's exactly what it was. You didn't want to pay Derrick Jones Jr., so you went and drafted his clone, basically. I don't understand it. I've been so excited. I listened to Bill Simmons just absolutely murder our franchise for 20 minutes on his podcast yesterday. We haven't been relevant for 12 years. We haven't been relevant for 12 years. That's a fact. We were relevant for 3 years and then add another 10 years on top of it. We weren't relevant then either. At some point, as ownership, you have to understand that this franchise and this fan base will support you if you just say, hey, here's the plan, guys. We're going to suck, and I mean suck, for 3 years, maybe 4. And we're going to give our front office the freedom to do what they need to do to ensure that this team is built properly. Whether that means bringing in bad contracts, whether that means trading out a LaVine or a DeMar or a Vooch, or trading Caruso because he has plenty of value to contending teams. And we're going to bring in young guys or bad salaries and extra assets. And we're going to take our time and properly put out proper scouts to go scout things. Because 4 years ago, you wouldn't send scouts internationally because it cost you too much. There were 29 teams that went to a convention overseas 3 years ago. There was one team that didn't go, and you know who it was? It was the Chicago fucking Bulls. I don't understand how you want to be in the third biggest city, market, whatever you want to call it, in the NBA currently, and you want to run it like you're some middle and nowhere team. I'm not going to throw shade on any teams, but like, you know what I mean? Like, not the big city guys. The smaller, you want to run this team like a small market franchise as opposed to being like, okay, we are in a big market here. Let's swing big. Let's hire the right people. Let's hire extra scouts. Let's hire the right trainers. Let's do this right. But no. This video initially, before the Vooch news, was supposed to be me coming on here having fun, showing you guys the trade machine, playing with trades for LaVine, DeMar, maybe a Caruso trade, something, right? Not happening, obviously, because this team is insistent on being just mediocrity. I'm willing to bet somebody's probably done it. If you look at the Wikipedia page for mediocrity, it's probably just the Chicago Bulls logo. That's probably all it is. Chicago Bulls logo. And it says mediocrity. Because that's all we are. We're going to pay a 30-year-old center for 3 years, $20 million a year. DeMar's contract's up at the end of next year, right? DeMar's starting to enter free agency here within the next year, year and a half. We just signed LaVine to a max for 5 years. Hopefully his knees are good in 5 years. Let's hope so. Because if they're not, then what do we do, right? Caruso's going to be gone at the end of his contract because he's seen the dumpster fire this franchise is. He's not going to come back. Pretty sure Patrick Beverley badmouthed us on the way out. He don't want to come back because he's seen what a failure this franchise is. So who are you bringing in that is going to allow us to contend? You don't have money for Fred VanVleet. Tyus Jones, you're going to have to give up too much for. You probably can't even get DeLon Wright off of the Wizards. Like, where is this team going? Are we going to roll out there with Kobe White as our starting point guard next year? Be like, oh, yep, there you go, guys. We fixed it. Don't you worry. We're going to contend in the East against Milwaukee and Philly and Boston and all of them. We're going to contend because we have Kobe White as our point guard, and that's the answer. It's not. We've seen Kobe play a little bit of point guard. Not the answer. Nothing against him. He's just not fully developed into that role. He hasn't been trained in that role. He just got thrown into it one year and was like, here, figure it out. So what realistically does this ownership group expect other than, hey, we're going to sell out like 40 games a year and then maybe a couple of play-in games. And there you go. Do a couple of jersey sales and we're good. Like, what else do you expect? I've been asking this team for years to blow it up because we went through a stretch of where it was like 7th pick, 7th pick, 7th pick. It was a running joke of, oh, it's draft time. The Bulls have the 7th pick, and we don't even know yet. Like, at some point, you have to understand as ownership that you cannot keep going down the middle of the road. You either need to learn to spend and go into the luxury tax and swing big for once, or tear it all down, get a bunch of draft picks. Granted, who knows what you would even get. DeMar's probably 1, maybe 2 picks, right? Maybe a young guy if you're lucky. Vooch, I don't even know if you would have gotten anything from Vooch. You probably would have had to let him walk. I don't know who you were competing against to pay him $20 million a year for 3 years. Who was offering him that money? Who? Please name me like 2 teams that was like, oh yeah, Vooch, here you go. Here's all the money in the world, buddy. Who was offering Vooch that contract? I understand. In my rankings, he was like the 2nd center. This isn't a great free agency class. Again, who were you competing against to offer this man $20 million a year? Who? Please tell me. Zach, I don't know what his trade value is going to be in a couple of years, because by the time that contract balloons into what it is, who's going to want to pay that? Who's going to want that on their cap sheet? For a guy that's like your 2nd, maybe 3rd star. Unless you're pulling a Phoenix Suns, who wants that on their cap sheet? Right? Like, I don't understand where this team is going with this, right? You haven't given Patrick Williams the keys to develop, right? You have 3 guys in front of him that are going to shoot the ball, right? Vooch is going to get shots up. LaVine's going to get shots up. DeMar's going to get shots up. Patrick Williams has no chance to develop right now. You've stuck him in such a small role that he can't expand outside of that small role right now. Caruso's not a point guard. Caruso's a great defender, but you had him guarding power forwards last year because we have no other help on this team. Like, I just blow it up, please. I know you just signed Vooch. Regret on the contract for all I care. Pull a Josh McDaniels. Be like, oh, nope, never mind. My bad. Not interested. Something, please. Because we cannot keep going down this road. It took Washington forever. And clearly it was too late for them because look at what they got for Bradley Beal. Do you want to be that team in 3 years, 2 years, however long it takes for teams to be like, you know what, Zach LaVine's not a winning player? How long do you want that to go on for? Until you end up with an expiring deal of like Kyle Lowry in a second or something for Zach LaVine. Do you want to wait that long? Or do you want to be like, okay, Knicks, here you go. Give me like 2 firsts, Evan Fournier, and expiring, and let's go. And let's start this thing off right. And then, oh, DeMar, you can go to Miami for a first and like Kyle Lowry or something. I don't even care, right? Like, there's got to be something here. We have to blow it up. We need to restart. You have to do this right. Otherwise, this team is never going to get past where they are. We've hit our ceiling. We've pretty much hit our floor. You've got to do something, right? Because you've already messed up the whole pick situation. You have a chance with the Portland pick, right? You could, in theory, get something out of that Portland pick because it just keeps rolling over, right, as a lottery protected pick. You could get something out of that. But we've traded our pick to San Antonio. We traded this year's pick to Orlando. For sure, we've got one more pick floating somewhere else. Like, just take a second. Think about it. Look at the bigger picture and not just the next 2 months. And be like, having 3 guys that can't really defend is just not a good philosophy. Like, it's not that difficult. But I'm going to stop there before I start ranting in circles, guys. If you have any Bulls suggestions, or if you just want to rant in the comments are a safe space. Good luck, all Bulls fans. I hope you have stocked up your liquor cabinet for this coming season, because I have a feeling it's going to be a long one, guys. But appreciate everybody coming through. I will catch you guys Friday with another video. Peace.